Hello, and welcome to Metachemistry. This is episode 106, and we're just kind of enjoying our new journey in the edition, going through N5, and kind of seeing what didn't quite meet our expectations one way or another. Things that, maybe we didn't think that they worked the way they actually do, or things that underperformed, or things that overperformed, and kind of how that is affecting our gameplay and how we might be looking at lists and things along those lines. But before we get started into kind of talking about the changes that we've started to experience with the new edition, we want to give a quick shout to Mo Games, sponsor of Metachemistry, which you can find at mo-games.com for all your Infinity needs. And if you're a patron of our show of any paid level, you get a 10% discount code to that store. And if you're part of our Discord, anyone who is in North America gets entered into a $40 coupon code raffle each month so that you can use that to pick up all the sweet new releases. Because what's better than games? Mo Games. And so for tonight, talking about changes in our play and kind of how we have been getting along with the new edition after a small handful of games, we have Azoka, Ian, and myself. And so what have things been looking like for your hobby and gaming endeavors over the last couple weeks? Ian, you want to start?
Well, it's been the holidays, so I've been at work the whole time. So not a
That's
whole
the spirit.
God.
That's what the holidays are all about.
I mean, I've been having fun where I can, fighting with customers.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's
I had a legit, somebody call up the other night because they bought pre-cooked turkey and then they were mad because it wasn't coming to temp and didn't like my answer of, well, it's really nothing to do with us. That's just a problem with your oven and equipment. So, I get away with it where I can.
A holiday spirit.
Yeah. But other than that, just kind of throwing together some lists and that I might want to run.
Sure.
But yeah, until we get a little further along and my time frees up, not getting a whole lot of games right now.
Fair enough. Yeah, it can be hard to do. It's definitely a pretty busy time of year for a lot of people, so it is often how it goes. Yeah. What about you, Azoka?
Well, for holidays on my end, all of the holidays fell on game nights, so I just completely got destroyed on being able to partake.
Yeah, that too, right?
Yeah, I'll play on Tuesday and Wednesday, and Tuesday was Christmas Eve, Wednesday was Christmas. All right, well, okay. Yeah. But I'm not complaining,
But hey, we got a New Year's Eve and a New Year's Day right in there too.
Yep. But I imagine the stores are probably going to be open on New Year's Day, so that might be able to happen. I don't know. We'll see. I've yet to look at that information, so I should probably not talk out of. But here we are. And since last time, I did get to play one game. Good times. I got to see Joan, which made me really excited. I honor dueled Joan with a Hatamoto. She was in the open. I'm like, I'm not going to shoot you if you come at me. And then, so she did. The Hatamoto won CC, bricked her. Then he moved around to go do something else. And then she reset on a 4. And I was like, sick. Or it was like a 2. She reset on a really low number.
Yeah.
So then she fled. And then we went a couple more turns. And then she went back into the middle, and the Hatamoto and her got into another fist fight in a different spot on the game board. I'm like, this is great. This is amazing. Never seen that before.
Peak Infinity.
So that was pretty cool. And I did actually get to build the Hatamoto because my stuff finally got in. Got that. I got a write-in. I'm pretty happy.
So who won the duel? Did either of them survive?
The Hatamoto is the victor. For this one instance, the Hatamoto has never lost to Joan 2 out of 2 fights.
That's right. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of 100% of the time this is the case so far in N5.
Yep. Pretty easy when your numbers are really low.
Right? Yeah,
That's
exactly.
it. I'm gonna go to every tournament with a Hatamoto and just seek out. I'm gonna challenge an MO player who's playing Joan and be like, "You honor duel me in the middle. I don't care
That's
about
right.
the rest of the scores of this game. This is what matters to me."
It's okay. Just every mission's decap.
Yeah. I mean, every mission's decap if you want it to be.
True.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I would love to get some new models, but unfortunately, I'm probably not going to be getting my December releases until the end of January.
Why?
Yeah, it's kind of looking that way.
Well, so a little issue popped up, and CB delayed the December Warcrow releases a month, and those are on the same order.
Whoops.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, I guess I'll get my Beyond the Box in a month.
Dang.
No,
Yeah, some people already got it.
Yeah, but they didn't also order the Warcrow stuff that got delayed.
I getcha.
Yeah, Workrow's been delayed because they're not able to keep up with demand currently, and they're trying to do extra QA on the stuff that they're putting out.
Yeah, so it's kind of a thing where instead of releasing a lesser amount and having everything be kind of not available to have, they're delaying it a month so they can have more time to build up stock and QA and stuff. So it's overall it's good. It just I had the misfortune of ordering everything on the same order.
I think I did the same thing. Yeah. I too want to pick up Warcrow and get more minis, but it's really that's really heartening to hear that they're having trouble keeping up with demand in Warcrow because of how the release shook out with Warcrow. I was not expecting that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm glad it's doing well. I feel like it's not at a stage where I quite consider it
playable
real game yet. Like, sure, you can technically do stuff with it, but with only 2 factions, and I think
a limited selection of units.
Yeah, like I think you can just barely. I think maybe not the case after all of these pre-orders for December, January go out, but I think around this point, like you can basically only make one list with each faction. Like you can finally make full lists. So yeah, I feel like it's just, it's in beta effectively in my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been able to get in more games. I've been stuck playing Tunguska, and I've been enjoying it, and they've been doing super duper well, which is
so you say stuck, but you're like, this is great.
Like stuck as in like I keep thinking about playing other things, and then I get reeled back in. So yeah, my game nights are on Thursdays, so they're after every holiday. So I've been getting games.
Yep.
So that's been a little bit easier to do. But yeah, so I've played a different army against a different army each time with the same list with some tweaks in between. But yeah, it's been pretty solid. I've been trying to use some of the new things, mostly the Go Pod and some updated units. Like Fiddler feels fairly different now.
Yeah,
between the movement changes and the +1 burst contender is actually pretty solid. Like that's a worrisome weapon all of a sudden. And yeah, some things like that. The Grenzer picked up Warhorse, which is super cool. Things along those lines. Double interventors have been in the lists. So that's been fun. And shotguns went down because they lost the template mode. So my interventors, who were not really worried about using the template, are now sub 20 points. You can get an Interventor Hacker Plus Whip 15 BTS 9 for 18 points.
That's not too bad.
Pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, man.
But yeah, so I've been getting in some games there. I've been doing some printing to get ready for the Training Incident League that I'll be running next month. But yeah, so should be getting ready for the Training Incident League, which is a grow league I ran 2 years ago, and now I want to pick it back up. I think it's a great time to do it because there's more interest and there's a new edition and all that good stuff. So I'm putting together a packet. I'm writing missions right now, and I should have it done in the next couple days, and then I'll put it out for interest for locals to join up and stuff. So I've been printing prizes and swag for that. I've been printing conversions and 3D print proxies for things. Like a hover bike to use for my GoPod for now, and a cool drone to use as the red eye for now until they get models and stuff.
Yeah, that's
So,
good.
yeah. So that's
Is it
been a lot of
sleek
fun.
and sexy?
It's pretty sleek. The red eye kind of looks like something you'd expect out of Cyberpunk 2077, like one of the larger flying drones.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that.
Nice.
The other one I found is just kind of a cool hover bike that looks pretty solid. And I found out I have an extra Zonautica that fits pretty well onto it. I think it's basically the same scale. So
That's
I think
awesome.
I might be able to put a rider on it, which is cool. The only thing that I found out that's a little problematic is that one of the legs from the knee down is molded onto a large segment of the bike, including the rear tire.
Wow.
So it's I could try hacking it off, but then that means that I will not be able to use this for
its
as a
intended
second
purpose.
Zonautica because without buying another, $50, $60 box set because there's too large and a S2 model in there.
Yeah.
So I'm still undecided there. But yeah, so I've been doing stuff like that, and that's been fun to kind of get those things ready. And
very cool.
Yeah. And then otherwise, want to also give a shout out to the Corvus Belli Krug. It's kind of bittersweet because it's no longer the Colorado Krug, but also super cool because Corvus Belli is officially sponsoring the Krug, or as I'm going to start referring to as the Interplanetaria of the West. But yeah, so the Krug is going to be a large-scale event. It's going to be in August on the 23rd and 24th in Denver at the Curtis Denver Hotel. Registration is going to open on January 4th, so just a little before this episode releases, I believe. And yeah, we're looking for it to be a roughly 100-player event. And more details will come out, as they come along, since this is still about 9 months out, just a little more. And yeah, it also is on Corvus. You can find it on Corvus Belli's site at taplink.cc/KrugInfinity.
Pretty excited.
Yeah, super cool stuff. So I think that'll be really exciting to see a big event for people to kind of gather around, because I know that a lot of the larger events have gotten quite a bit smaller since pandemic-related issues, of course, and that happened to a lot of places. But so far, nothing's gotten quite back up to those numbers, even though they have been growing a little bit.
Yeah,
but I think this will be a really cool resurgence in that, so that's pretty exciting. So, a mighty preamble to our main conversation topic. But yeah, so we're looking at things that aren't quite how they appeared on paper when we first saw them several weeks ago. So, Azoka, you want to kick one off in terms of something you saw that either, I looked at it and I could have swore it worked this way, but it's that way. Or this unit I didn't think much of, but turned out to be really, really cool. Or this hyped up thing wasn't as good as it was cracked up to be so far. Or
for sure,
like that.
Absolutely. I got a few, but I'll just start with one.
Sure.
Nanoscreen. Nanoscreen was so I looked at it. I'm like, oh, sweet. It's normal nanoscreen, but you get all your stuff all the time and is now countered by some other stuff and blah, 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 blah. Well, I didn't fully contemplate how awesome it is against heavy rocket launchers, missile launchers, chain rifles, the whole number of things. I shot Ian's good Hatamoto with heavy rocket launcher Ryukin. I'm like, sweet, he's only armor 2. It's going to be no problem. Even though I knew that he wasn't going to be armor 2. He was going to have his full armor, but it doesn't really set in until you experience it, right? So that is absolutely on my top bit of holy cow, this is really good. And then I started looking at some of the units that have them, and the answer, okay, well, they have a lot of armor. What do you do about that? CC, right? Because CC gets through the marks or through the nanoscreen. So why don't we just, CC the units that have nano screen, the ones that are all CC 23 and martial arts 4 and stuff and Protheon. Yeah, that's it.
It's like, wait, except it's the Hatamoto or Achilles or Shiskin or
Yeah.
like that doesn't work quite as well.
It'll be really good against like Koroks, Hashed, and Victor Messer and Dr.
For sale teams. Yeah.
For sale teams, yep.
Yeah,
all of those
sure.
odds.
But,
it'll be good against them, but
yeah, the getting the saving roll improvement. I really wanted to say getting the damage reduction, but that's not how it works. Still getting used to that.
Good luck kicking that habit. It's going to be a while.
Yeah, I still find myself doing the math the traditional way, or the previous way, and then flipping it. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's damage 15. Okay, so it's a 5 or under plus cover is 8. Cool. Instead of, reading it as it actually is.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that nanoscreen reduces the damage of every incoming attack that's not CC is really potent. Because that was kind of the thing before, is like templates would ignore that, and that's a big swing. That's the difference between hitting someone with a heavy machine gun versus hitting them with, like a pistol.
Yep.
Well, I guess pistols are one worse than that, but you know what I mean? Like, it's a big difference.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's the big one. At first I was like, okay.
Of course, now I'm wondering, did pistols become PS8? Or are they still PS11?
Let's find out.
Not PS.
I think they're 9.
Or PS9. 9. There we go. Reverse it. But,
they are PS9.
Okay, yeah. So not quite, but almost. Like it's a pretty wild change. Like that's a big difference in how hard hitting a weapon feels, considering how close most guns in the game are, damage wise. Like that's a huge difference.
Absolutely.
But yeah, been also fighting said Hatamoto. Had to rocket launch it, and it also didn't do anything extra. So we just went hit mode instead. So at least it lessened the gap.
Isn't that awkward?
Oh no, it was a template because we caught other things. That Jisamurai. Poor Jisamurai.
Poor lad.
Yep. Didn't make it. It was worth hitting 2 models to not get the damage boost. But yeah, what about you, Ian? Any things that you have seen that have worked differently than you expected or otherwise defied expectations somehow?
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of data to kind of sort through to figure out how things work now, because a lot of stuff didn't change, but some of the underlying rules changed. Mm-hmm. So it's, figuring out where those fell, and some of the weird stuff like climbing plus basically just being next to useless in comparison to how it worked before. Like,
yeah, it got hit pretty hard.
It's still having climbing plus is still a boost, but it is extremely situational as opposed to something you're going to use constantly. Because before climbing plus changed climb into the short move skill movement. So, like, you can just walk up to walls and start walking up them. And this one, it just changes climb to a short skill. You still have to maintain all the other aspects of climb. So you still have to, start that declaration of the order. Whether, your first part or your second part, you have to start in base with the terrain that you're going to be climbing, and then you climb it, and you stop at the top. Instead of being able to continue your move, if it's the first part of your order, you can still shoot, when you get up to the top, or dodge, or whatever. But it's much more limited, and I think it's going to require a large reevaluation of how people are playing units that have it.
Yeah. Yeah, Climbing Plus was pretty disappointing. Like I thought that it was powerful, but in a good spot towards the tail end of N4. And measuring from the bottom instead of the top, but making them all 6-inch climbs, I think
Yeah.
that covers a lot of circumstances and makes it pretty reasonable overall. Like, sure, some things might be better otherwise, because like the Sputniks come to mind. Like they're silhouette 4, so they're fairly short, shorter than an S2, and they have higher movement, and so it sort of benefits them in some ways and not so in others. But yeah, Climbing Plus as a whole was definitely has taken a hit, which feels a little rough, especially when you look at the previous stepchild of Super Jump, which actually I feel like Super Jump at end of N4, Super Jump felt pretty decent.
Yeah,
It's
I agree.
not as good as when fall damage was in the game, and I won't dive into all of that but still pretty good. And they felt relatively even, with Climbing Plus being a bit better, but not like wildly so. But now it feels like Super Jump is wildly better, and Climbing Plus it's cool if you have it, and it's better to have it than not, but is not like a skill you really look for very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. As an enjoyer of Shinobu, I don't know how it's going to shake. I'm going to really need to play some more games where people have targets that are on a roof that I have to deal with to get a good understanding of how that's going to function. Because on one aspect, like if there's this, I don't know, heavy rocket launcher up on a roof that I have to deal with, Shinobu still climbs up and CCs that guy, right? Nothing changed there.
Well,
however,
as long as you can reach base with the model with your climb move.
Right, but if they're typically going to be against the edge of the building, right? It's so rare that someone's deployed back. That does happen when there's like scattered terrain on a building and stuff. But generally, and that's why I say that I need to play it more to actually understand how it's going to feel. Because before, I'm going to climb, and I'm going to climb, and then I'm there, right? But now, and especially for lieutenants that are hiding a little farther, I can't just climb up there and then move into CC. It's going to be really difficult to do. So I'm very curious how I feel after several games.
Yeah, starting and stop, needing to start at the edge of the wall and needing to stop once you reach the top of it feels pretty bad.
Yeah.
Both of those combined make it much less efficient. At least you can do something when you get the top, because I feel like most of the buildings we play on, you can get at least a story up in a 6-inch move from the ground and still do something. But you really wanted to be going in and attacking something, and that's not always going to work.
It is nice on camo state units, though, or marker state units.
Yeah.
Because you at least have some level of protection to give you that extra move. And just like you're saying, Super Jump, oh man. One thing that I didn't think of before with Super Jump is, you move 6 inches, you can only go in a straight line. Well, if you're a 6'2" movement model, your first move can be a regular move and you can move around that corner. You don't have to go in a straight line. And then you're free to do another 6 inches. Which is just wild.
One of the things that gets me excited about the Garuda, because they became 8-2 and gain jet propulsion. So they can just dash 8 and then do a 6-inch super jump with the jet propulsion ability.
It's which you don't need to combat jump, just parachutist.
Right? Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, which I'm a little sad about. I figured jet propulsion would give you more freedom of movement midair.
Yeah.
But it lets you backtrack to where you started, which is not as cool. But Super Jump's already good, so I can't feel too bad.
Agreed. But I was bummed when you couldn't just trace or just draw a line in the air and make a question mark above your enemies, and then that's your Super Jump path. But it's, after talking about it, the skill does not need that.
Right. Yeah. It's already powerful enough. Like I said, the big thing for me is the 8-inch super jump. I really wonder, and I have to play with it more. I've gotten 3 games in so far, and I haven't seen any 8-inch super jump on infantry-sized models. I don't feel bad about it on the aerial vehicles because they already have a pile of downsides to kind of help even things out. I think they are very good. Like the GoPod has done like fine to exceptional in the games that I've played it. And I haven't really had it disappoint me in any given game. But yeah, when you can hide something and you can, choose when you want to engage from cover and then jump later, or, you're just so much smaller, that becomes a big deal. I played Raoul Spectre, and I didn't play the combat jump version. I always play the combat jump version instead in N4, but I'm like, oh, well, this one's regular. He gets a multi-rifle instead of a boarding shotgun, which I like better now.
Yeah.
And he's turns out he's still real fast. And he doesn't have like frenzy or anything, so he can claim cover with his Mim 6 and no wound and cap. And so in like 4 orders, like moved up, grabbed an objective, playing supplies, moved over, killed a silver snake sapper by getting under the sniper range, and then went back in and took the supply box into my deployment zone in 4 orders.
It's nutty.
And I was like, oh, it's kind of wild.
One thing that I will say that there's a lot of I have heard of some ho-humming on the internet about like, oh, this is bad now and blah, blah, blah. You kill the game, whatever. One of the things that I want to point out as an appreciation to the changes to everything is exactly what you just did. You'd never play that profile. You do now. And we're going to see tons of that all over the place.
Yeah, like I didn't feel the need to combat jump or parachute in. And I think the profile is slightly more. Or maybe it's...
points.
I forget. It might be a hair less because it's irregular, and then that ends up making it cheaper. But yeah. Like, I didn't want the one in my deployment zone moving 4-4. Like that wasn't nearly as good for what I wanted him for. But now that he's a zoomy boy. But yeah, one thing that I think we talked about in our last episode about first impressions that I'm pretty sure we got wrong was immunity. Yeah. There's an important red remember box under immunity that says that it ignores the non-lethal trait, or it does not ignore the non-lethal trait or the effects of stun ammunition unless it specifically says immunity to stun. When we initially read this, we'd all taken it to mean like, oh, non-lethal weaponry and flash pulses and other stun sources just cut through immunity. It just ignores it. Upon reading it again, like, oh, it ignores the non-lethal trait, specifically, not non-lethal weapons or attacks, which basically just tells us that immunity works as before against those things, assuming it goes against the save that the unit has immunity for. So if you have immunity to BTS, then EM does not affect you in any way. Damn you, Karakuri. Damn you.
I know.
I'm so sad. They should have immunity arm. They should have immunity arm.
Agreed.
But yeah, that does make me feel better because I was wondering a little at the time, like, okay, immunity BTS is kind of weird. Like, it's just for breaker and viral weapons. Like, that's basically all it does. But that makes more sense and is more in line with how we've played immunity in the past. It just means that the non-lethal trait does not get ignored, so that an EM wave coming at you from an EMRAT or something doesn't all of a sudden cause damage to you because you're immune to the effects of EM.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a big one to reread and actually make a fair difference on how those things are played.
So you talk about Karakuri, which is in JSA. That's my next point of things that are better than we expected them to be. Is the Ryukin. Well, I am of the understanding that decoy is not that great of a skill, right?
It's not,
because it only does something when they reveal, right? I think that them adding decoy to the Ryukin HRL profile is too good and it needs to go. Having played it and having list built, I'm looking at this and I'm like, there are way too many ways that you can lay down your camo tokens and your little markers to mess with your opponent's like play. And to be at a -6 to discover, unless you're playing like MSV2 high discover models or whatever, they just stick on the board, so they just waste orders.
Yeah. It is much better on models with camouflage. Like decoy is fine on its own, but it gets real nice with camo.
Yeah. On troopers that don't have any marker state, it's definitely doesn't do anything because you're either gonna get you're just gonna get shot. It doesn't mean anything. But with these marker states, I'm like, this is
they might
crazy.
Shoot the wrong one.
Oh darn! They shot both in split burst, and I said no arrow, so I could fool you. I won. But yeah, I think that it's a mistake that I will be abusing. So hooray!
Yeah, I get that. I kind of feel that way about the Agamemnon. The Agamemnon got kind of crazy because it now has all the things I hate in a gun, which is that it can do everything.
Their gun is the Apex gun.
Yeah, it's here's our AP continuous heavy machine gun with -1 to save. It's like, okay, so you're effectively as far as ranged weapons go, it's a max damage weapon with a max burst weapon with a good range band. It's good against armor and it will burn away things. And so you could, you can kill something with one failed save just cascading, even if it's, another tag or what have you. Now, I'm not saying that the Agamemnon itself is overpowered, but I just strongly dislike that combination of making it an everything weapon. Like Adil Mahmoud already got that as well, and it's on a number of other things. Like it's obviously not going away, but it doesn't make me stop hating it either.
Yeah,
I just don't like the design, even if the unit is reasonable. So like the Azrael and the Agamemnon are like largely held in check by not inflicting any modifiers, not ignoring any modifiers, and they're BS 13-14. And so like okay, they're fighting something that is that can do a favorable face-to-face, then it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to actually punch through. But yeah, you just land that one hit, and it's a not insubstantial chance to just keel over.
Yeah, it definitely happened before, but now you might see it a little more. And I'm kind of curious we kind of mentioned a lot of these great things, or these things that are probably too good, I guess, ? But
better than expected, maybe.
Yeah, better than expected. So I'm very curious how the meta is actually going to shake out. I wonder if we're going to end up running, like, my belief is that Maximus is going to be a little too good, but I wonder if we're actually going to see that, or if it's just not going to be completely non-existent and it's going to be really well balanced. I'm very looking forward to playing in tourneys.
Yeah, Maximus. Immunity arm is kind of the answer to the thing that I hate, but I also don't love that that's become prevalent enough to need a foil.
Yeah, there's a lot of rock, paper, scissors happening.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting in that either factions are not necessarily always going to have the option to take something for every situation, or you're going to have to split up your list quite a bit if you want to try and cover all your bases. Or like, kind of we've always done to some extent. Like, all right, well, in some cases, I'm just going to have to use the tool that I have, even if it's not the best thing I could bring, because that's what I've got. That's what I have on my list. I can't afford to take, a BS attack -X gunfighter and have a Warhorse MSV ARO piece and have a couple albedo troopers or white noise around. And, some factions can do that, but
most cannot.
Not everybody's going to be able to. Yeah,
and certainly
and
not
the
effectively.
Can. Right, exactly. Yeah, even the factions that can, it's not necessarily going to be easy to do without like putting other holes in your list.
That brings up a question. Do you guys think that every faction should be able to partake in one level of each of the rock, paper, scissors triangles?
Not
Or
necessarily.
the counters?
I think it depends on how you want to define that. So, like, if we're saying like albedo, MSV2, or MSV and mimetism, yeah, I think every faction should probably have some access to at least one or two of those things.
Yeah.
But does every faction need to have access to all three? No, I don't. I don't think that needs to be the case by any stretch. I think you
I
can
agree.
do other things.
Completely. I also don't think that you need to try and put that in your list. Like, you had to fight MSV or mimetism before when you didn't have an MSV trooper. Like, it happened. So just expect to see it more and expect to just work around those numbers, try to find an alternative solution.
Yeah, look for
I
shotguns.
think a lot of it is
Not anymore.
you don't necessarily need the specific rock, paper, scissors tool. You just need to figure out what you can take that can deal with what you're encountering in not necessarily the most direct fashion. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
you know, they have good ARO troopers. Take camo guys so that you can like walk past them and force them to discover you, because you can still move and they can't shoot you in general. So things like that. You know, look at alternate tactics to be able to get to where you need to be to deal with the thing you're having trouble with taking head on.
Totally.
Yeah, and that's something that Infinity's always been good about. Like you were alluding to just a moment ago as well, was that there are ways to, there are hard counters for these things, sure, but there are soft counters too that you can utilize and still get by. And honestly, just because something isn't favorable doesn't mean it's insurmountable either. Like, okay, well, I'm still active and have 4 dice to year 1, and yeah, maybe you have MIM 6 and I don't have any MSV, but I'll just throw enough dice at you, or whatever
I've
the
cried
case may
on
be.
ones plenty of times.
Sure, yeah. So there's, you don't have to have the perfect tool by any stretch. Sometimes just, it's just not going to look pretty when you're done.
Apply crowbar to face.
Yeah.
I definitely do want to say that I appreciate that there's a little bit more counterplay to things in the game now. Like, one thing that I had wished to see was like a hacking program that was a counter to guided or something.
Sure.
And just be like, okay, cool. There's this cool counterplay that you can do in the game, whatever. So I am glad to see many, many things that can get countered.
Yeah. I haven't run guided yet in my lists, even though I have a couple good quality hackers and stuff, and some ways to get repeaters out. Mostly because I've wanted to just not worry about it and try focus on some other things. Like, I really want to see about putting triggermen and or switchers on the table. The more
seem
like,
cool.
kind of weird Tunguska units that are just kind of interesting. But yeah, like, so I don't have anything to really say more than last time, other than I feel like just on paper, I feel like guided got tapped too hard. Like, not that it's unusable, but that it's like it probably didn't need all of the changes that it got. But I would have liked to see U-turn if some of the other things hadn't changed.
Right.
But,
yeah. Definitely don't need to see it now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's plenty of gaps in reliability for guided, which I think is good to some extent.
Dude, okay, so we talk about nerfs. Holy cow, okay, I hate bears. They were just annoying, and I'm like, I just do not like them. They're too hard to deal with. They're too good. Tone them down. Okay, don't slow down. They went so hard on bears. I was like, okay, that's now I don't know if I'm ever gonna see a bear.
I think you will, just because the models are cool enough, and they're still
hopefully
good.
Because I agree,
but I don't think they're anywhere near as a pain to deal with as they were before.
Yeah.
Because now, and Ian, you'll have a better idea than I will, because I kind of ignore Ariadne profiles. It's just like a blind spot. I can't explain it.
It's just because you're bigoted against
Oh, okay.
Atex.
I prefer elitist, but okay. But yeah, so we had they no longer have immunity total.
Yep.
So they only have immunity, or what is now immunity enhanced. So they have immunity arm. So they're vulnerable to BTS attacks.
But they
more
got
so than before.
BTS.
They
So
did
it's
get a little
50-50.
BTS.
They got BTS 3 instead of 0. So
Yeah. So that's pretty notable. But that means that they can be isolated with EM, which is pretty notable.
Yeah.
Stun just cuts through immunity regardless, unless they
That's
have
the big
immunity
one.
stunned, which is kind of interesting because they dropped a save off of stun. Stunned was 2 saves and then 4. Now it's 1 save. But I think that that's an interesting trade-off. Like, it's always useful instead of, I'm going to walk past your ARO and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to flash pulse you to try and contest your smoke throw on a 19, I guess.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll fumble a grenade. But
then they also lost the bonus to smoke.
Yeah.
They're on a 16, which is fine.
Except for right now, weirdly, the shotgun bear throws smoke on 20s at the moment.
What?
He has BS
attack +4.
+4 because of the shotgun to make him BS 11 for the shotgun.
Okay.
But it's on the profile, not the weapon. So technically, he throws smoke on 20s until they fix that. Although if they don't, I'm going to laugh.
And throws trench hammers on 20s.
Yeah, he does throw the trench hammer on 20s, although that's now only PS6.
Sure. Yeah. Definitely doesn't hurt nearly as bad.
Yeah, it's not PS3 like the AP weapon.
Okay. Right. I did not catch that. I completely missed that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, the shotgun one seems quite good. Like, it doesn't have a template like the other one.
Yeah.
Even an impact template, which is pretty notable. Because like, if it had grenades, that would be kind of interesting. Not that it needs to be throwing hand grenades on 20s.
Yeah, that's why not?
But they also, none of them can claim cover ever.
It would be throwing hand grenades on 23s because regular thrown grenades still have their +3 band.
Yep. You're right.
Yes.
But yeah, so they can be
20s at long range.
Weapons, 20s at long range.
17.
They can be. Oh yeah, because it'd be minus instead of not. Yeah. Yep. Math.
Still.
Another big one is the Berserk change.
Yeah, Berserk, which I think they're a unit that are generally benefited by this change. I mean, they didn't mind it because they were tough enough to take the hit and keep going almost always. So, I mean, maybe that's not quite the case, but they're also good enough in CC that unless they're fighting a CC expert, they're pretty favored to win the roll anyway, and then also not take damage. But yeah, their armor went down by 1, I think, right? Weren't they armor 5 before?
Yeah.
They were armor 5 before, yes.
And then one of them could claim cover, which I don't understand.
That was the one that was not impetuous. No, it was the one with the chain rifle could claim cover because it had the controller, and then the one with the shotgun did not have the controller and was irregular and impetuous. Now they both require the controller and can't get cover.
And they're not impetuous.
Cover, and they're not even impetuous, which is kind of weird. Like, that
is so weird.
They would be impetuous. And then climbing plus obviously got worse. So yeah I mean, bears are useful, but not anywhere near as good as they were, at least as far as I'm seeing. And I haven't played against any, so there is that. But it definitely looks like a lot of things moved out of their favor. So yeah, it is interesting to see like one of those things where it's like, okay, did it need all of those things to be true?
Apparently.
I guess so.
And you know, we had talked about Eudoros a little bit last time, and he's another one that I feel like is kind of in the same boat. Where I'm like, I mean, I know he was good and could and deserved a little bit of toning down, but it was quite the fall. But that's okay. You know, Ajax is just standing over him with his hand on his head as Eudoros like swings under his arm because he can't reach him, you know? He's like, no. It's my turn now.
Which I am not upset about. I love Ajax.
Yep.
You know,
Missed the
another
grades.
interesting thing to me is I don't know. Okay, I was kind of expecting less lethality in the active turn. We all know that there's definitely less lethality in the reactive turn because you're only ever going to hit once, right?
Mhm.
Pretty much.
But in the active turn, you're still throwing 5 dice, so it's pretty much the same if you're playing a duo or Harris or whatever that gives you the best.
Yeah.
So
You
that
aren't hitting every
actually
shot
didn't
anyway.
really change. Yeah, right. I mean,
Well,
unless
The vast
your
majority
average
of the time.
BS went down though.
went
That's
down
true, if
for
you're remi-
AR rows for the most part.
No,
Less
for active
so-
too, because you have to be getting to the higher levels to get the BS
Right.
bonuses. So it's
Which
I
you
one
needed
of
a
those-
core to get to that anyway.
yeah,
and I saw
And I
much
mean,
less of
active
that.
cores
But-
were less common.
yeah, but you're
Yeah.
not going to really see the cores anymore because
Yeah,
it's
but
not as worth it to get up to that level. When
But
you can get the
aggressive
die
cores-
bonus, when you can get the die bonus at 2 guys,
yeah, but I mean, aggressive cores were just less common in general, in my experience. Like they were
Right.
there. I would run some. Hollow man, but yeah, I didn't really see them a ton in terms of aggressive cores. Most of the time, it was easier to use defensive cores because you didn't have to be as mindful of your positioning, like order over order. Like you could just deploy them in a decent spot and not worry about it. They had a really good defensive presence and pretty strong arrows to potentially very strong arrows in some cases.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't think that affected the active turn much. I mean, yes, a little bit sometimes, but I think that far and away it affects the reactive turn more.
For sure. So I'm feeling the active turn is going to be even stronger.
That's something that I would be a little worried about too. Like some things are much faster. You're more accurate, but again, the special die really doesn't make you much less deadly than just having burst 5 because again, like it only matters if you hit with everything
And it was not
everything
often.
beat your opponent's roll anyway.
Right.
So it's like between both of those things, it's not like there's going to be a substantial difference, or like you might see that, 1 in 100 rolls difference type deal. Don't check my math. I didn't do it.
Yeah, and the composition obviously is a real big deal now, right? Because the problems that I had in N4 with certain Harrises being it just really good and efficient is like, for example, Unknown Ranger of Varangian and Denma or whatever. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not going to look at it, but I don't know if they all share the tag. So now it's like, okay, well, if you want to get Unknown Ranger on Burst 5, you have to play 2 Varangians, which isn't much of a loss to Denma, but it does restrict you way more to be able to actually get that quote unquote extra burst, right?
Yeah. And so for that one in particular, Denma still counts as a Varangian, so you can do the same thing and get the level 2 team, but the Unknown Ranger got worse outside of US, I think. I think he lost MSV and
yep. He lost MSV outside of US. No, pretty much just MSV.
Oh, he has it in US?
Yeah, he has it in US.
He's still...
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Makes me
he's got
so
his
happy.
goggles there.
So the US can supply him with goggles, but nobody else can.
That's right. Space goggles don't work.
Funny.
So, yeah, so there is some of that where it is interesting because fire teams are very different. And I found that it's been a lot more tricky for me to write lists because I'm used to building more around fire teams. And it's harder for me at least. It's been harder because I don't have that same structure. And so now it's a little bit more freeform, which I think is good. And I will start coming around to more as I just make more lists and save them instead of trash canning every list that I write. But yeah, it's been really interesting. Like I did write an OSS list and it was a Yadu core for funsies because now you can fit all kinds of stuff with a Yadu core. that you could not before because, you have an extra 30, 40 points.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been interesting seeing some of the fire team changes. I am curious. I do want to see how an active core performs. And it can still be, do defensive stuff. But generally speaking, that core that I had in mind is a more active core. And so, because I kind of want to see how that works and if it feels really rough to play, okay, is this investment worthwhile enough for me to want to play it, or am I just not going to play things larger than Harris teams?
Yeah.
And I could kind of see that being the case in some instances. Now, not all of them, but I would say Dakini are so cheap that I wouldn't mind building a core of them.
Core Satsu too. That's also a thing. Or
Exactly.
Senku.
Right. Yeah, and some of the
That'll
line
happen.
troops are cheap enough that you can just do that. And that's a good way to get a 6th Sense hacker because Deva's count, and the killer hacker Deva's ludicrously cheap now because he had a shotgun. So now he's only 20 points.
Much cheaper. Yeah. That's another thing that is sticking out to me is 6th Sense hacking is so much less prevalent, right?
Mhm.
Before you would see that,
Absolutely.
I just have a core, here's my 6th Sense hacker, blah, blah, blah. Now you really have to struggle to get there.
Mhm.
And that's like a buff to stealth, while at the same time they've received a nerf to stealth with targeted canceling stealth
sure.
altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is a really neat little tack-on change. It makes sense thematically and gives extra bonus to using the program, which I think is fun, even outside the context of guided.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot harder to get to that point now, which is cool.
And
it makes it feel relevant.
You almost can't play a 5-man core with a ARO trooper and a hacker, right? Because the moment that you lose that ARO trooper, you do not have 6th Sense anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay, well, I'll just take my big gunfighter. I will pick off your line trooper ARO piece with their sweet BS of, 12 or 13. And now I can just run my guys through your repeaters again and no one cares.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if we're going to ever see it very much at all because of that, but who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because some factions will just have that built into some hackers, which is
not
scary.
the McCrep anymore. Man.
Not the McCrep.
Said.
But yeah, and you can bring the ones that have it because it's just natively on their profile. You can just bring them.
So
around.
valuable.
And it's cool. I don't even need to invest in a fire team to make this work. The Black Air, I guess. I mean, I don't think that's the best example I could come up with by any stretch, but the Black Air hacker, it's okay, cool. Well, he's a hacking device and can join fire teams if he wants, but has combat instinct. So there we go.
Wow.
I mean, that's expensive for a mediocre hacker, but the premise is there. I'm sure there are other examples.
But Pano gets midfield presence with their hacking network, so watch out. Pano might be the hacking team now.
Yeah, I mean, Peacemaker's got a big bump, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
They picked up MIM 3, and one of the options has
mine layer?
Mines and shock mines and mine layer on the Oxbot, which is really interesting. And of course, it's a repeater. It has a flamethrower. It has a shotgun. It has mimetism. It has a mine. That is a pretty good midfield speed bump.
They lost access to Spitfire, though.
Yeah, but I feel like that was the much less common one anyway.
That's fair, but it was a cool option if you wanted a Spitfire in the midfield.
I agree. It's nice to have the option, but I don't lament it.
Now they have boarding shotgun and heavy shotgun profiles.
If you want either extra burst
and
shotguns and pulsars or heavy shotgun.
They all have pulsars, just like you said, which is just okay, well, there's less templates. Just kidding.
There are fewer overall.
It's true. It is true. Yes.
But yeah, there are some that make me kind of wonder, like, you really wanted to just keep this way. Like the Garuda is the prime example in my mind for that, because it's boarding shotgun and
Boarding
PS
pistol.
and no, it has a chain colt with -1 to save. So then it's exactly the same damage again. So it's like,
Yeah.
like oh, ta-da.
I think that they're trying to target specific problem units, I guess, without removing
I
the
think so.
shotgun. Like
Right.
Gulam, right? Gulam just trade
Mhm.
too effectively to skirmishers.
Yeah, like
So-
everyone in the faction is a light shotgun, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I this bothered me a bit with how much boarding pistols were around, or like those templates and stuff, that I kind of like went and looked through several things, and most things that end up having a boarding pistol are kind of like a drop troop. That kind of makes sense that it would have a template. Less so of the midfield sort of like guys like Delamy don't have it, and sort of stuff like that. So
Sure.
it is definitely a reduction, and where it is present, I'm like, okay, most of those make sense, or I have no problem with.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily mind that, because like for like Delamy are really cheap, and they have to win a face to face to do something potent. Really good. But then you have the jackals, and then they get the boarding pistols and are, but they don't get a marker state, which is pretty notable. Like that's a big deal.
True.
So I don't feel too bad. But yeah, a lot of interesting stuff to experiment with, and things that are not necessarily what they looked like at first glance. And that's always fun, because like even when you've played the game for quite a while, paper knowledge does help. Like it does inform evaluations. It does, like, you can get a good idea of how something will work, even if it's not a perfect idea.
Yeah.
But when you're actually putting things on the table and seeing how things function, that's when you can really get the good information and start like making informed decisions. Like how good the Copod is. Isn't that right, Ian?
I do not like it. No, sir, I do not.
Yeah. I was kind of picking my brain on how I deal with those guys, and I'm like, I really don't know how. You can't CC them, right? Or is it that
No.
they can't CC?
You can't CC
Neither.
them.
Yeah,
Not even with guard.
Yeah, they are. Aerial makes them immune to CC. They cannot CC. They never count as touching anything, so they can't interact with objectives. They can't be engineered, etc. Until they go unconscious. When they go unconscious, then the aerial rule turns off, and you can do stuff like repair, directly engineer them instead of just Gizmo Kit, or you can CC them, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because like they're pure attack pieces. That's their only job. Generally, I mean, I guess they can play as defensive pieces to some degree, but yeah, they just
usually.
Their job is bullet.
Their job is bullet. And
Or in the case
Pano
of the
gets the
GoPod,
best.
rocket. Yeah, it's interesting. What was kind of cool playing the GoPod was that it was always inflicting some modifier. Like it wasn't
really nice.
always. It wasn't always inflicting a full -6 because it's Mim 3, BS attack -3. But in basically every face-to-face, it was doing something. So it's you can't hard counter it as easily, but you can kind of soft counter it a little bit more readily, which I think is an interesting trade-off. I really like the design of the GoPod so far. It seems really neat. And there were, in the couple games that I've played so far, the last 3 games, I have had it in my list each time. But one of the games I didn't even activate it, just because part of that was I was playing against Marats, and one person he plays very frequently runs Bakunin with a heavy observance leaning. So it was like 2 Yaogots and a Kiosat. And so it's like, okay, well, when you have several, and maybe a Suryat. Oh, no, it was the Suryat HMG, not the rocket. But still, at least 2 MSV2s and I think another MSV1 somewhere. And army-wide Warhorse. It's like, okay, this doesn't feel quite as good right now. I will ignore this for the time being.
Yeah.
Sally, go get him. But yeah, so it is really interesting to see this type of unit, and I'm curious how it'll shake out if they will become like the go-to attack pieces in their faction. Like maybe, but there's also some really good stuff. Even the Pana one, like looking at the Red Eye, like it's solid. Like that thing looks pretty nasty. I haven't put it on the table yet, but it looks really good. But just as easily, how much better is that than say a Tikbalang? I don't know. I mean, Tikbalang's more expensive, but it can also avatar it up with 4 orders. So
Yeah.
But yeah, so it has been interesting. We're obviously trying to try out different things where we can and kind of get a better idea of how things actually work in practice, and also rereading rules more thoroughly because sometimes they're just not what we thought.
Like move. I would have never read move, but it's important that you do so you know that you can go prone at the end of it. You brought that up, Devin.
Yeah, that's an easy one to miss because it's not something that you necessarily think about. It's like, oh, well, yeah, that's the move. Okay, it generally works like this. Okay, there's a couple bullets, but we're going to gloss over that. You move. Yeah. So very easy to do, and that's why going through those thoroughly can be pretty important. But yeah, I think we're about ready to transition over to our final thoughts. But I just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of our patrons who support the show. We really, really appreciate it. Everything that you contribute goes back into the show in one fashion or another, whether that's subscription costs for software or replacement hardware or upgrades or special projects and sponsorships or swag for events that we'll do sometimes, things like that. So thank you very, very much. We really appreciate it. And we don't pay ourselves out of it or anything like that. So it just comes right back here. But yeah, we do try and give some benefits to show our gratitude for that. So you can get access to episodes like these a week early because we release every other week. So the off week, all of our Patron Plus 2 members will get this episode or all of these episodes ahead of time. We've got some private rooms on our otherwise freely open Discord and final voting and polls and things like that. And as far as the Discord itself, that is, like I said, free and available for anyone to join outside of a couple limited channels. And we'd love to have you. Link is in the show notes as always. And yeah, if you're curious about N5, want to tell us some of your takes on what's been going on, or just, bounce ideas for lists, show off painted models, all that good stuff, come by. We'd love to chat with you. With that said, Azoka, Ian, final thoughts on kind of the subverted expectations thus far in N5?
I am excited to see what else I got wrong and what else impresses me. Like, right. I didn't really talk about it, but contenders are pretty cool now. Pretty threatening. So there's going to be tons of those and like not Blitzens, I'm sorry. The emitter? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's going to be so many things where somebody's going to shoot me and I'm going to be like, that is what now? Run that back. Oh,
that's cool. That's rifle range. I'm outside of that. This is way past 16. Wait. Oh, you mean it's good from 16 to 32 now?
Oh, whoops.
Oh, my tag. Yep. Why did I cross the open?
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah. I think there's just going to be a lot of cool stuff with the game. Just new it's a different game. That's reality. It's a different game now.
In a lot of ways.
100%.
So I'm excited to figure out what the new things work, new combinations and all that. So yeah, I think it's just, I haven't been excited about Infinity like this in a while because it's been, very, very similar for a long time. And now it's just like much more clean slate with really new mechanics and new weapons and stuff, of which my favorite has to be the multi-Spitfire because it's on one unit in the entire game, which is the Mechazoid for Shin and Butai.
I swear I saw it one other place. I feel like
I went through the whole thing, whole army. Everybody was filtering for multi-Spitfire only on the Mechazoid.
It's so funny that they didn't give it to like the Knight of Holy Spulker, who pretty much just has it.
Nope.
Right.
Nope.
Or the
Only the
or the
Mechazoid.
gecko, or like anyone who had the
Yeah.
like multi-marksman +1 burst
Plus
in
one
damage.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
like, okay, this is a
No,
multi-Spitfire
no.
with extra steps.
No. Only the Mechazoid gets it.
Yeah. Which is bizarre, because you would think that like one of the high-tech factions, which I guess JSA is kind of like a middle high-tech, like
They're
medium
high tech now. They
Yeah.
have nano screen and plasma. Suck it, Pano.
Yeah. Except Pano also has those things.
I wasn't gonna
And then
say it.
MSV3.
What do they pick up that has nano screen?
Dr. Priya,
Dr.
the same
Harper.
person who has
Oh.
plasma.
Who also has plasma. Yeah.
Well, fine. I'll just kill
Yeah,
her
it
first.
is. It is fine. Thank you for your approval.
Unacceptable,
Okay.
CB. Unacceptable.
We're so close to. Whoops. What is the difference between? Multi-marksman has better longer ranges. It is
Yep.
not bad after 32, bad after 40, and the multi-marksman rifle is bad 0 to 8, whereas the Spitfire is not.
Yep.
That is the
Yeah.
notable differences.
And higher damage.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's really interesting about the multi-Spitfire. It's yeah, I'm glad that it's finally in the game. But now I'm mad that there's a multi-Red Fury. Like, why?
Wait, who has the multi-red fury?
The Hedkari sharpshooter.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else does, but that's the only, it's like, why? Why not just be a multi-Spitfire? You already can fire shock or AP. So why do you need to be a Red Fury?
Less
Because-
damage.
Yeah, less damage.
I guess.
Or PS. Question mark?
Higher PS. Higher possibility of survival.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, I think for me, it's a lot of make sure to reread things, because it's easy to it's easy to gloss over on accident. Just because there's, especially for people that have been in the game for a while, it's easy to not capture those things on first read if you're not being careful. And so, yeah, take the extra time. Same advice as last time, for sure, in terms of make sure to look things up. Like, get that muscle memory in, commit those changes, and then things will be easier. But it's worth taking the extra time for now to double check and make sure that everybody's on the same page. And if somebody says, "Oh, this unit has this thing," like, "Oh, really? Let's take a look.
Don't be
Can you
upset,
show me that?" Yeah, like there are definitely a lot of things that have changed and gotten things that are pretty wild, like Dukash. Dukash is in your DZ, killing your dudes.
What?
He's on the table at all, you mean?
I played him once.
Right. There is some of that. I think I played him once as well in my 2-month stint with Shizvasti.
Mm-hmm.
It was okay.
Yeah.
Which he's expensive for okay. But anyway,
Yes.
never stop learning. That's it. Anyway, well, we hope you've enjoyed some of our additional thoughts and ramblings on N5. And on behalf of Metachemistry, this has been Devin,
Azoka?
And Ian, and that's the meta.